really hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, like, and click the bell to be notified of more fantastic music content just like this.
Welcome to the Need to Know Music Show with me, Ronan McManus, here on Switchbox TV. Today I am joined by the founder member of a prog rock band from Bournemouth in England, Big Train. They've released 12 albums and 3 EPs to date in a career spanning the best part of 30 years. Please welcome Greg Spawton. How you doing? You right?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
How did 2020 feel for you? Because I know that it was sort of like a bad year for music business in general. I know everything live kind of got shut down. What did you have planned for 2020, and how did you kind of innovate? Because that seemed to be the order of the day last year.
Well, it's been a disaster for us, really. We had we've only started touring recently, despite our long history, and we had 2 tours booked in May and July, one in Europe and one in the States and Canada, and that all went down the pan. We were kind of, that we could, like everybody else, I guess, in sort of March, April, we started thinking this isn't going to happen, but we still had some hopes, and then it just kind of fizzled out. So that left us several £1,000s down because of visas that we couldn't, use, all of that stuff. So it was a very difficult summer. And alongside that, I mean, we're quite a big band, a big live band. There were 7 of us in the live band. 3 band members decided to leave over the summer as well. And mostly related to, kind of, I think, reassessing their lives because of COVID. It's been such a big thing for everybody. So we were in, to be honest, by August, I think we were in disarray is probably the correct word. But we were writing songs, and we took a punt on booking studio at Real World in November, thinking, hey, it'll all be fine by then. Our drummer lives in the States, and our guitar player lives in Sweden, so it was a question of flying them in for that. And of course, we couldn't do that, but myself and the singer went in anyway and did our bits there, and we had to do the rest of it remotely. I think it's basically been as awful as it could be in terms of a professional musician's kind of life, but I can see a way out of it now, with a new album in the can and all that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, because it was your first ever North American dates, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we've, as I say, we started back in, as you said at the introduction, a hell of a long time ago. We were just a bunch of lads, like Spinal Tap on tour, really, but without, in the Jazz Odyssey years when they had no audience. So we were just doing, the usual thing, Royal Standard, and driving around the country trying to get gigs and things. And that sort of fizzled out, and then the band started to take off from sort of 2009, and we started to build up an audience. So we were very cautious going back into gigging because we were doing quite well just selling albums. We'd gone from selling tens of albums to tens of thousands, and it was suddenly feeling that it was quite a good way forward. But it was clearly a demand to see us play live, and we just thought, let's do it. And we got back on stage in 2015.
That's one of the things I was going to ask you about.
And then sort of built it.
It was one of the things I was going to ask you about, because it seemed like you were kind of going along, and it seems like prog rock is maybe one of those sort of genres where it's such a intricate, like, for terms of arrangements and songwriting, and there's like so many bits to all of them. It feels like it's almost more suited to the studio than the stage.
Yeah, I think especially the way we do it. One of the things we did in 2009, we brought in a brass band, and I think it's one of the key things that has been part of our success has been importing that sound into a rock band setting. And it's not Earth, Wind and Fire stuff. It's it's kind of colliery band, quite sort of a lot of pathos in the sound. But of course, when we started to play live, and in fact, the promoters were saying to us, yeah, great, but you've got to bring the brass band. And that was part of the deal, really. And we wouldn't play live without them anyway. But of course, that means, in fact, at one stage we had 13 musicians on stage with us, so it's a huge production. for a band, not in the kind of Genesis level of album sales or anywhere near
It's
that.
a lot
So
of people,
it's a
isn't it?
very costly.
Yeah, it's a lot of things.
It's a really costly thing for us.
And the size, even the sort of venues that you can play them, they have to have a certain size stage and
Yeah.
sort of sound system to actually
Yeah.
be able to do it. I mean, that's one of these. I know. How did you find that? I mean, what sort of venues are you playing? I mean, it's like you talk about.
That's exactly right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's honestly the first venue we played at, it was King's Place in London, and we had no concept of how many tickets we'd sell. I mean, we thought we're gonna, I had no idea. So this was a 400-seater venue, and one of the main reasons we chose it because it had a big stage.
Yeah.
And even then, we couldn't get the brass band on stage with us. They had to play up in the balcony.
Suspend them on wires, sort of hanging.
Yeah, actually, it looked pretty. It looked pretty cool. That would have been very prog, actually. So we lowered them down. It looked pretty cool because they were up in the, they sort of came in and out of the show. It was pretty strong visual thing.
Worked
but
well, yeah.
we sold that out pretty quickly and pretty easily, and so we obviously thought, actually, this is working for us. So we progressed on to Cadogan Hall, which is about 900 seats, and then we played. Right out to Germany and played Lorelei. Have you ever been to Lorelei?
I've never known.
And
yeah,
open air festival, sort of 3,500 to 4,000 people. We played. It was like 25 degrees at night. It was just epically good. It was such good fun. And then we went and we did finally got on tour in November 2019, and we played Town Hall in Birmingham. I'm a Brummie, so to be at the Town Hall in Birmingham was really exciting. So kind of, we're at that sort of 1,000-seater level now, and we hope to grow that. But it's prog rock, and in 1972, I think it would be a very good. I think it'd be very likely that we could grow that. In 2021, it's a bit more difficult. It's not the flavour of the month genre, to be honest.
But in terms of,
but we keep plugging away.
In terms of the gigs we've all been doing since, we did when there was that brief sort of feeling like life might actually get back to normal. That were the kind of seated gigs, and it was a kind of a very different thing for sort of maybe your pop or the rock bands to play to. But maybe something like prog could actually work better in that setting in a more almost, because it's got that crossover of that orchestral feel. To things as well, then that maybe it would suit those seated venues and socially distanced. Then you kind of feel like
it might.
The big venues could suit you.
Most, if I'm honest, most prog audiences are fairly socially distanced anyway, because there's not often that many people in the audience. But I think seated venues kind of works for us because it's music to listen to.
Yeah.
And hopefully it stirs the heart as well. But I think so far it's been the right kind of thing for us to do. And it's not like a heavy rock gig where everyone's crowded down at the front and all that stuff. So it may work for us. I don't know. We've got 3 gigs booked in July. I've no concept at all whether or not they're going to happen. But we've got to start planning.
Absolutely.
Things have to happen now.
So you're gonna have all the things in place. You'd rather book them and have to cancel them and find yourself, we could have done something here.
That's it. And so we've got a tour manager who's got to find a tour bus that will accept a cancellation without charging. All those things. We can't afford to get stung again like we did with visas. So again, we were looking to play in mainland Europe this summer, but the advice we've had is, with all the Brexit thing as well, just forget it for now.
Not helping, is it?
And just try and get through to the end of the year, really.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not helping the fact that now there's this barrier in the way of touring, and there's petitions and stuff going in. So maybe there could be some movement there, and if there's enough of a. It's one of Britain's biggest exports over the years, isn't it? Yeah. Music is what people know England for, and internationally. It seems ridiculous to hamstring the business like this,
It totally does, and I think I think common sense has to prevail at the end of the day for everybody. I can't. As I said to you earlier on, we were really stung by the visa scenario in the States. It's always expensive to go to the States anyway, but we don't want to be in that position again with car nuts and all that sort of thing, where we're having to struggle through Europe and all that. But we'll see. We'll do whatever we need to do. But let's hope that life is easier in future rather than more hard.
There's a lot of genres of music, like there's a lot of British bands who kind of rely on that festival season, getting out to around Europe because there's big festivals across Northern Europe and Eastern Europe. There's kind of like these, and there's a lot of bands where there isn't maybe a big sort of maybe a huge metal scene here, but there would be in say like Germany or somewhere. Yeah. There's big festivals there. I mean, how do you find that what the audience is like internationally for what you do? Do you find that it differs? Is there a certain place where it kind of you feel there's that you love going back to?
Our biggest audience is in England for sure, or the UK. Italy is doing quite well for us. Germany was interesting because it was I think rock is kind of not so cool in the UK at the moment, and in mainland Europe, I don't think they ever had. We were playing to an incredibly wide demographic in the audience. There were lots of girls there, lots of young people there, and that's not what we're used to in the UK. Really, it's more of a middle-aged kind of bloke sort of audience, which I'm not knocking them because they're the guys that come out and pay for t-shirts and tickets and stuff. But it is nice occasionally to sort of look out and think actually there's a younger group of people that are here to see us. States and Canada, I don't know. I suspect it's harder in that demographic or in that area than it is in Europe, even because I think there's not much of a rock market out there right now, unless you're on the heavy side of things. But the thing is, the truth is, we make the music that we want to make, and we can't do. We're not going to chase an audience doing something that isn't true to ourselves. Sounds really pompous, but. We're a bunch of songwriters, and we'll write the songs we like, and at the end of the day we've got to hope that there's enough people there to enjoy them to sort of help us to keep going and growing, really.
Well, listening to your music and from a songwriter point of view, it just seems like there's so many different songs within each song, and it feels like I mean, how do you do that? It just seems like there's some I don't know. I was just thinking, God, those the sort of melodic choices you're making and the sort of modulations that happen and things like that. It's like, these guys are crazy, or this is just like either genius or completely mental. It just feels like it's loads of bits happening all the time, and it's one of those things I feel like I could have.
Sometimes, when you're on stage and you've kind of lost your way, and you look over at the drummer and you think he's lost his way as well. And we've had a couple of car crashes live where everybody has just sort of thought, what's the time signature for the next bar? And it can be, it's not an easy music to play live. But as I say, it kind of comes from the heart, really. I think we all love it. It's good fun when we get it right. It's really bloody good. But there are times when it's seat of the pants, if I'm honest. And of course, we're not. If we've done 100 gigs a year for the last 5 years, I think we'd be, flying. But the way it is, by the time we'd ended our UK tour and we filmed the show at the Hackney Empire, we were just about getting tight, I think, by that stage, really. So it's not easy. And sometimes I sit there and think, why couldn't I be in a funk band or something where, you get the groove going and, you enjoy yourself and you're playing live with a smile on your face rather than a sort of a, what are we doing next?
I feel like if you're doing 12-bar blues, you could just sort of sit back, get drunk, and just enjoy the gig, But sort of.
I think so. And it's interesting because we had our guitar player for a while was Dave Gregory from XTC, and of course in XTC the song. I mean, they're very clever, really clever, and quite complex songs, but quite short. They're generally, Andy and Colin would keep the song lengths to a sort of pop length. So Dave is a mean player, but he would, there'd be times when he'd be scratching his head, really thinking, having to sort of write things out to learn them. So it isn't an easy gig, and it's not an easy thing to do. But as I say, when it goes right, I think it's quite beautiful when it goes right.
It's funny that they choose the word progressive because it borrows so much from the past. Because it really, there's like, as you were saying, you're using the colliery bands and there's a lot of sort of classical influences and and it's a very symphonic sort of sound, and listening to the live album where the songs just go into each other, and it feels like it's like almost like a show. It's like one big performance. It's sort of it's actually not a new idea, but it's done in a new way. It's kind of it's really, I find it really massively interesting, and I just feel like
there's two
go on.
two schools of thought on the progressive thing. There's the kind of purist thing that to be progressive rock, you've got to be doing something different all the time. And there's the second school of thought, which is that it's broadly speaking a genre with some sort of shared features, long songs, complicated songs, different time signatures, etc. And I think both of those things have been right at different times. So in the early 70s, unquestionably, bands like Yes, Genesis, and Van der Graaf and whatever were doing something different. But that's 50 years ago. Rock music's only been going for 70 years. So within 20 years of the start of kind of rock music as we know it, bands were progressing and doing some different stuff. Half a century on, it's very hard to get back to a position where you're doing something new in a pop or rock music sort of thing. So from our point of view, I mean, the brass band thing was probably the one thing that we brought in that was different to prog rock, I think. But generally speaking, it's about quality. It's just about the songwriting being good. It could be as clever as you like or complicated as you like, but it's got to make, it's got to touch people in their hearts a bit and connect with them, and that's it. And I don't want to listen to a 20-minute song if it's just a 20-minute song. There's got to be a point to it being 20 minutes. It's got to have an arc and the story, and it's got to reach stages where kind of lift you off your chair a little bit, and that's it. It's kind of just a slightly, it's ambitious pop music, I suppose, is really what.
There's definitely there's folk elements in terms of the sort of in the way that folk music would talk about sort of legends and kind of and nature and that kind of thing, and there's a lot of those. It's a form of sounded to me like a form of folk music, really, in the way that you'd hear Kate Rusby or Seth Lakeman, singing about this. Seth Lakeman does a lot of stuff about the Southwest kind of legends and myths and legends stuff, and this is really interesting sort of stuff. And I'm of Irish descent, so there's a lot of I played Irish folk music for a long time, and you can hear those references in there, and but it sort of feels like go on.
Seth's a good. It's a good reference point actually, and I'm a big fan of Kate Rusby as well. I love a band called the Unthanks.
Brilliant, aren't they?
From the northeast area, they're really cool.
Yeah.
It's storytelling, and it's and again, this comes back to this album, The Underful Yard, in 2009. That's when we started to really do the storytelling thing, and it just it just connected with our audience. And the nice thing from my point of view is I get people writing from all over the world saying, I'm fascinated by whichever story it is that we're telling in that song. It really does connect with people, and that's what it's all about. It's connecting with, and that's why folk music is so great, because it connects you to your history, to your landscape, to local tradition, all of those things. So we're kind of, we're not a folk band, but we're kind of doing storytelling in a sort of rock song format, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've had a lot of sort of lineup changes over the years, and seems to be this kind of people coming back and going away and then coming back again, and then how did you? I know it's kind of you kind of had the two of you were kind of the sort of the main two through the whole thing. How have you maintained a kind of continuity through that time of continuously making music through a lot of changes?
Yeah, it's been very difficult. I mean, to be honest, I'm the last man standing from the very first Big Train. But in my mind, I kind of, if you're a deep core fan, you can go back and listen to the 90s stuff and hopefully find stuff to enjoy because my songwriting on there. But really, we kind of, it's from 2009 that the current band for me started, and again with David and Nick as two of my still bandmates. So since then, it's been fairly straightforward keeping the momentum up.
Yeah.
I think because if you're starting to do well, it feels it feels good, and it's been a band of brothers along the way. Andy, the other founder member, left a couple of years ago, and as I say, last summer we had this sort of semi-catastrophe with lots of people leaving. But that, again, we reached a stage where okay, we sort of quit, or shall we just, the four of us left, let's just make an album and let's see what we can do, and we've made a really good album. We've got a couple of very talented people joining us in the live front, a young woman called Carly and a chap called Dave who are going to join us on guitar and keyboards. And so the live lineup's already kind of establishing itself, and we can't wait to get into a room together and start to sort of bash the songs through. So it's kind of a new beginning, and having been doing this for 30 years, it's a bit of a strange thing to be talking about. But I'm nothing if not stubborn, and after a wobbly moment over the summer, we just thought, oh, come on, let's get on with it. And I think the next album's going to be great. I'm really, really positive about it.
Yeah, I think it feels like it's kind of like it's always been kind of you at the centre of it, and it's kind of been whatever you need to make the sounds of what the songs are. If you know what I mean, there's a kind of the band can change and people come in and out, and it's still you, it's still big changes. It's you. And it needs that driving force. Have you felt the weight of that?
Yeah, I have. And actually, it's a good question. I mean, we've had it's only been the last 2 years that we've had management. It just got to a stage where it was becoming. I gave up my day job about 5 years ago, and I've been working 40, 50 hours a week ever since. And there was a time where I just thought, I really want to focus on playing bass and writing songs, and I'm just being dragged into. It was like being back in an office. It was just a million emails trying to deal with production issues, etc. So yeah, it's been burdensome, but we've got a really good management team now, and they're doing all the right thing. We've been signed up to a booking agent, and we're now working with a full-on big promoter and all of those things. So the things that needed to be in place probably a few years ago are now in place.
Right. So
and that was another
really
reason last summer.
Isn't it? It really is. This really
yeah,
is. It is. So you can just actually concentrate on the music now, and because this is one of the things I noticed that you was releasing off your website back in the 90s, which is kind of what every band has to do now. It's the norm.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, there were record labels that there aren't really now these days. So every musician now is self-releasing, but you were kind of doing that long before it was cool,
Yeah, I mean the band that was ahead of things in our world was Marillion. I mean they because of course they had their quite big success in the early 80s, and then they sort of reinvented themselves, and they did that through crowdfunding and really clever website, etc., etc. So we kind of followed them really, but we've had 2 or 3 quite good offers from record labels, but we enjoy the control of doing what we want to do when we want to do it, and also that's the main issue for us. I get to decide with my bandmates what happens when. The management now obviously are heavily involved in that as well, but we're not beholden to anybody, and okay, that causes a lot of work for us as individuals, but on the other hand, we're masters of our own destiny, we like. So yeah, I think we've made the right decisions with the management, but just a little bit late, and now those weights are being lifted off our shoulders, and we can just get on with being a band. It's cool.
Yeah, and I think it's important not to jump into that kind of stuff. A lot of bands or artists jump into that too quickly. You've grown your audience organically, and you've kind of got to the point now where you can maybe, if these people come in, if there's really stuff to work on and stuff to work with, and they're not, there's a kind of you kind of set everything up already. It's kind of important. But that's the way that people have to work now.
and you know, the weight that's lifted is phenomenal, and that's why we were able to sort of spin on a dime really in the summer and just say, okay, there's only 4 of us left here. We need we need to do an album. Management get on with doing what you do, and we get on and do what we do, and it's been great. You know, we've you know, I couldn't feel, apart from the fact that we're all locked down and we're all bored and we're all fed up and we're worried about our family and friends, etc. That's all terrible. But in terms of the band, we've been through a really bad spell, and I think we're coming out the other side, and we're happy, and you know, we're looking forward to. We're just anxious about these gigs in July. You know, are they going to happen or not?
Yeah.
But we've got a plan B for that as well. You know, just in case they don't happen. I think we need to get together and be playing together, because it's been a long time, and you know, we're kind of missing that desperately, really.
The next technological leap has to be being able to play simultaneously in different places, because that's been the one thing that all musicians have realized is you can't do, is that because there's that slight delay on Zoom calls that just means you can't play at the same time, because that is the one thing that's missing. As much as people have been doing, and you've recorded an album remotely, and there's that kind of back and forth thing that happens, and as handy as that is, and how much, as well as people have kind of innovated through it, just that thing of playing together with people in the same room, it's just you can't replace that.
No.
There has to.
No. And we were, you know, you're exactly right. We talked about a streamed kind of thing, but we know there's lagging issues and all sorts of things like that. So the only thing we can do would be to film it and then deal with that afterwards. But then it's not live.
You're not playing together.
I mean, Roger Waters has been
the first person. The first person that records doesn't play with anybody. Everyone else plays with them one by one. That's how it works.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit of a you know, it's sort of subterfuge, really. You know, it looks live, but it's not. And so I don't think we're ever going to do that. But as I said, we've got a plan B in the summer. You know, so if the gigs don't happen, we may just get together and just film something. And you know, so I just think we need that time, especially with new live band members, to really just get that. Get in the groove and just enjoy being musicians. You know, that's what we do it for. You know,
if you could be in the same room, maybe distanced, and kind of, if it's done in a safe way, surely there must be a way of doing it. You know, even if you do it now, if you could create a bubble and all kind of test and then you know, then like in the way that they do the boxing or they do the UFC or whatever it is they do.
I mean, when we were at Real World in in November, I mean, their studio was brilliant. They're really well organised for it, and we came in and we worked together. We had Carly and Dave there, so we did a little live session, and filmed and recorded that. So, we were all in the same room together, but we created that little working bubble. So there's ways around it, but I'm hoping that by July, please God, we're
must be on
gotta
the
hope
by then.
that there's something. Please, I mean, I'm not. I mean, the danger is whether or not they're going to allow big numbers of people to get together. So we're playing Ramblin' Man, and that's probably big enough for the powers that be to be understandably concerned. There's a lot of people mixing from different areas. So, but I guess it's all about vaccines and all that stuff, and see whether it see if it works. So, I mean, how have you been? I mean, have you what's your life been like for the last few?
Well, it's been a bit. I've started doing interviews for Switchbox TV, speaking to musicians over Zoom. It's like, because there's been no gigs, and I mean, I started off just by doing this Artist for NHS thing, which is a wife's an NHS nurse. So we've kind of had this situation where she got really busy and I just had nothing going on, so just trying to innovate through it and trying to do live things. I mean, but what was the recording process like then? Because I know, for those that don't know, Real World Studios is Peter Gabriel's studio, and it's a place that comes up quite a few times over your the information I was reading about you. It comes up. That's where you did rehearsals in 2015. Went live. It's obviously I mean, but is that studio that you use a lot? A place you go back to?
Yeah, it's home from home, really. It's and it's residential. There's not many residential studios in the country anymore. It's a very homely environment, so you feel like you're at home, but then you can just literally get up and walk 100 yards and you're in a huge studio and can do what you want to do. So it's been a big part of what we've done, really, and we've got to know them there very, very well. Got a very good relationship with them. Everything's top notch, as you can imagine. We've worked at Abbey Road a little bit with string section,
Right.
a larger string section, which has been really cool. But Abbey Road's got a very different vibe to it than Real World. It's a lot more sort of there's a lot of history in that environment, and Real World just feels a little bit more friendly and a bit more down to earth. So yeah, I think we'll continue to go back there. It's just been part of how we became a band. I think really just getting ourselves into a proper studio, and of course, so many musicians now just work at home. They record all their parts at home and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think they miss out on what being in a band used to be like, which was being in really great studios with incredible facilities and
Yeah,
all that
also
stuff,
there's a kind of people talk about certain studios and the vibe coming out of the walls and kind of capturing it. And
yeah.
I suppose it's kind of maybe that's an inspiration thing coming from within the musician or whichever way you want to look at it. But there's certain there are certain things that you can't reproduce.
Oh, you can't. That's exactly right. And I think one of our songs, Wassail, came from being there. Really, David kind of just picked up this vibe from the room and went away and wrote it, based on his experience there. Wow. So, and it's fun. I mean, there's other prog bands there. We were there last year or the year before. I can't remember. There was a prog band from Italy there, right. So that was nice. And as we were leaving to go to Germany, Camel were coming in. And a very famous old band from the 70s, so they were still going, amazing band, and they were coming into to Real World. So it's a lovely camaraderie there, really nice place, really good.
Excellent. So Abbey, what was Abbey Road? What was Abbey Road like?
It is. You are. Have you worked there?
I've never been there. I've never worked there. No. What's it like?
Okay,
it's
really. I mean, we were
through the door. You must just feel like. I don't know.
It's like going to a castle. There's history in the building.
Yeah.
And you go and you sit at the piano, and David Assinger started immediately playing some more Beatles stuff, and there was the sort of fag mark that John Lennon had caused with a casually disposed cigarette. So it's all there.
Yeah.
And we've not done any rock there. We've done strings. We've done a 16-piece string section there, and so it's been sort of engaging with a sort of classical world and really amazing players in London. So it's been honestly, it's awesome. You've got to do it.
Yeah, it's one of those.
You've got to get the chance.
It's one of those bucket list things, isn't it? It's like gotta get in there and do it. Yeah,
I couldn't recommend it highly enough. It's save up some pennies and go down there. It's well worth it.
Absolutely. So what's the new album? What can we look forward to on the new album? What's the tracks to look out for? And what was it like recording that with the guys? The other guys did their parts from home, did they, or from their home wherever they were?
Yeah, to be honest,
what was that process like?
Because of the geographic. That was fine for us because the geographic distance of the band, we've done that for years, in effect. In fact, the Real World thing was going to be new for us because we were going to be all together. We normally only do that when we're playing live. So it's kind of a bit, we were swimming against the tide, I suppose. So it's fine. It was no problem. In the new album, it's maybe a little bit heavier than previous stuff. I'm not allowed to say too much about it at this stage because I've been told that we need to kind of manage the news and all that stuff. Yeah. But it's we've recorded about 70 or 80 minutes of music, so we could make it double. But I think we'll just focus on. I'm really into. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm really I'm not into this sort of playlist thing. I like albums, and I like albums to really be a cohesive piece of work. So we're going to choose from that selection of songs what we think flows and makes for the album, and it's being mixed right now. And I had a little backing track thing earlier today, and I was like, hopping around the room because it was sounding really cool. So I'm really excited by it, and I know everybody says that. when they've got a new album coming out. But it is kind of like a new beginning for us. And I think one of the things that we knew when we were writing over the summer was we couldn't afford anything to be on the album that didn't carry weight. It all had to feel, absolute top notch. And I think that's what we've delivered. So we'll find out in July when it comes out.
And find yourself being a kind of a regular live band. I don't know 2020 being an exception, but since sort of 2015, where you end up becoming sort of the live band that you'd never really done before, has that changed the way you've written, recorded, arranged? When you're recording, are you thinking about what you're going to do with this live or how this is going to be live?
Yeah.
Has it changed you as a writer?
Yeah, it has. It's had a big impact, I think, and I think it's important that you don't let it have such a big impact that it completely changes everything you do. So for example, there was a song on the last album where David went to town, a song called Ariel, and with I mean, it's unlikely we'll ever play it live because it's just got so much going on in there. So I think there's always room for, a day in the life alongside something that you can easily play live. Yeah. I think you've got to be clever about that. But there's no question, as you play live, you start thinking, you always start thinking, is this a song we're going to play live or not? And, let's not fade out. Let's do a proper ending here because that's how we're going to deliver it in a concert. It just tweaks what you do a little bit, which is a good thing, I think. I think we've become more of with the odd exception, almost anything we've delivered in recent years, we could play live.
Yeah.
But some would be obviously harder than others. And, it's good.
It's finding that balance, isn't it? As to not stunt creativity by limiting yourself with, we have to do this live, therefore we can't do that, between sort of doing that and then doing it kind of then not thinking about live at all. I think you've got to have a balance maybe between the two things. I think is a healthy thing.
I think that's right, and there's no question. The song I mentioned a minute ago, Ariel, the really complicated or the really produced song, we could play live. The rock band bit of it isn't too difficult, but there's lots of voices, and we'd probably have to think about doing it on a special occasion with a choir, etc., that sort of thing. So everything's doable, but it's nice to sometimes have things that you can get out your back pocket and play.
Is it tempting
tomorrow
to
and not worry about?
Is it tempting to take a section of a song and put it in another? And like rearrange, take that rock bit and put it somewhere else amongst a different song, or have you ever done that kind of thing live with like just quoting other songs and that kind of thing? I feel like
all the time.
I feel like it's a perfect genre to do that with. You could
It is. I love that about it. Yeah, in the 70s, a lot of the bands, you can make it sort of symphonic, so you can just quote songs in other songs or the themes.
Yeah.
And we do that all the time. And it's the same on the new album. There's 2 or 3 album themes, and we don't generally advertise them. So sometimes they're buried quite deep. And it's really nice when you're on the band's forum or whatever, and somebody with a musical ear has picked up, hang on a minute, that's a different key, but you've clearly worked on that and re-burnished it. So we do that a lot. It's a big theme of prog rock, I think, and it's nice to play around with music. It's good.
Are you ever tempted to go in as a different person, go that thing you didn't, that no one noticed that thing I did there? I'm going to go on as Tony from Stepney and go, it was really good we did that, just to let people know what was going on. Everyone missed it.
There've been a couple. There's been a couple where we've just drop these little time bombs in there, thinking people would pick it, and they never have. And the problem is I forget about them. So there's stuff on albums that people have never talked about that I've forgotten about, and then someone does finally pick up on it, and then I'm going, did I?
Did we?
So we've made a lot of music over the years, and I think that's just part of the course. You sort of tend to forget a little bit of.
It's so elaborate. It feels like it feels like you're never going to get bored. You're never going to get to the point where you go, well, it seems like you can always take it somewhere else, because that's the nature of prog. You know, you can kind of you've
I think that's the nature of it's the nature of good prog. I tell you what, again, that's a really good point because when I was growing up in the '70s and I started, I like good pop music, and then I was a choir boy, and the church I was a choir boy in, and the organ player was a really good organist, and he had a really sounds a bit rude, but he had a big organ, and it was it filled the church. And I think that went in there somewhere and started making me think
sound,
about
isn't it? It's an amazing
Incredible.
sound when you hear the. Have you ever heard the? Is
Absolutely
it the Albert
incredible.
Hall that has the working organ? Is it the Albert Hall?
The town hall in Birmingham does as well. It's got this bloody massive thing,
Yeah.
and we were peeking behind the curtain of this thing and just imagining our keyboard player on it, maybe in sort of Monty Python style. But it's lovely to be able just to think in broad brushes and in fine detail. You can do both of those things, and you're not constrained, and that's why we don't diss prog rock. And most prog rock bands go through a stage where they kind of go into denial almost and sort of diss the genre. But you can do a 4-minute song and it can be accessible and happy and easy going, and then you can do that cheek by jowl with a 15-minute piece of music where there's incredible amounts of detail. What's wrong with that? It's great. You can go to your heart's content. You can do what you like. So I think people get constrained by it and they think you always have to be doing 10-15 minute songs. You don't. It's a very diverse genre, and it always was. And I think some of the modern prog bands forget that. It was always about the song. It was always about having a 5-minute piece next to a 10-minute piece and all that sort of thing. There's so much diversity on those early prog albums, and we follow that rather than thinking everything's got to be 25 minutes. It's which some bands have done in recent years.
Yeah, well, it seems that's the thing, isn't it? It's to push the boundaries and keep people guessing, and you have license to do whatever you want. So it's fantastic in that respect. As a writer, you must just be, you can just literally, you could quote any sort of genre of music, and it would have a place. You could find a place for it. So
that's exactly. I feel there's no constraints really, and so we're just really happy. We don't get hung up about it. I mean, other prog bands get terribly. I don't know if you heard of Stephen Wilson, but he's the kind of leading light in our sort of genre. He's the biggest breakthrough artist in recent years, and he clearly gets very hung up about it, and I don't think wants to be perceived as being a prog rock artist, even though he's done 2 or 3 albums that are unquestionably in that domain. And I just don't know why he worries about it. It doesn't matter. You can do what you like with it, and that's what I love about it.
Well, I did this thing where I recently got lumped in with a load of Americana artists, and I kind of just always released and written albums and done whatever I did. And then I didn't realise for all those years I was actually writing Americana because I never put that label on it. But it fitted perfectly with the single. I was like, okay, this is singing as Americana. That's great. It's brilliant. I mean,
Cool. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, just because I didn't change what I'd written. I've still written what I'd written. It just fitted in with another stuff that I didn't realise existed. But it's fantastic.
That's exactly right. And I think I think the way you go wrong is if you're thinking, I've written a nice song here, or I must put a bit in 7/8 into it. You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
If there's a bit that feels right in 7/8, then do it. But you don't need to cram every song with a twist and a turn. And there's room for. Some of my favourite songs in Big Big Train. There's a song called Uncle Jack, which is 3.5 minutes long, 4 minutes long, and it's like a little almost folk number really with banjo, and it's a beautiful sing-along thing, and that's brilliant. And if every album was just that would leave me feeling short. But because there's that, and then there's something more dramatic or more expansive later on in the album, then you've got that nice sort of flow of material. And so as I say, we just we love all sorts of music. I do like folk music. I like alternative music, and I like loads of things. And we're pigeonholed as a prog rock band, but it just doesn't. It just doesn't bother us.
I thought you were folk as well, as well as all the other stuff.
Yeah,
so
a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a folk influence. In fact, the violinist on our new album. He's just playing on the album at the moment, but he's a violinist from Lao, who are a folk band from Scotland, and so there's a fantastic alternative folk band. So we've got no problem with dipping a toe in that water, or in a heavier water, whatever.
And why not? Exactly. I mean, music's there to be enjoyed, and it's there for everybody. Yeah. So just keep doing what you're doing. It's great. So
we'll try.
I've got a proper question for you now, which is this is the bit. Yeah, it's the bit where I pretend I'm a real journalist, but it's the dream gig. Basically, it's you guys are opening, and then there's a band on after you, and then a headline act. They can be from any time period in history. You have complete freedom. And I know if there's going to be 3 prog rock bands, it could be a very long evening. But but you haven't got to worry about the ticket sales. It's really completely self-indulgent. Whoever you would want to be on after you, and then a headline act. Who is it? Who are you going to choose?
I think I would love to be on stage with XTC when they're playing. That would be fantastic. I think another band I'd love to have been on the same bill as is Prefab Sprout. Absolutely, Paddy McAloon is like a songwriting god for me. So that would be very exciting. I think probably in progressive rock terms, Van der Graaf Generator. I'd love to be. To be supporting them. Peter Hamill's an incredibly good songwriter, and I love what Van der Graaf did. And there's, I've have to mention Genesis. Ideally a nice, reasonable sized venue supporting Genesis would probably work pretty well for us, I think. So that's the kind of mix. I can't be more specific than that, but that's
good. That's good. That'll do. And we always ask for a recommendation. So this can be somebody sort of new that you're listening to that people need to check out. It's the Need to Know Music Show, so we ask you, is there an artist that people need to know?
So I really like this Danish band called Mew, and they kind of do, I guess, sort of alternative kind of prog, really, but it's a kind of unique sound, and I would suggest people watching this with prog rock fans, I'd go for a song called Comforting Sounds, which I think if that doesn't hit home, then I would be very surprised. So that'd be my recommendation, New.
Excellent. We'll put a link to their stuff into the description, also a link to all your music. And where's the best place for people to keep in touch with everything that's going on with the new album?
Well, there's our main website, bigbetrain.com. There's a very good forum on Facebook as well. Just look at, it's called a group, but that's really nice place to be. There's no politics, no religion, just music, and people hang out and talk about other bands and things. But that's lovely, and we try and we're always engaging with it. Fantastic. So I'd recommend those two as our things. But we're also on we do the socials. We're on Twitter and all that stuff. So.
We'll put links to that group as well, so that people can go on there, and also links to all your socials. And good luck with the gigs. I hope they go ahead, and hope that that if they don't, that your plan B works out for you too. And I feel like surely July we'll be in the clear enough to kind of be able to do something. Surely.
Yeah, I swing from day to day.
Without cursing it.
Yeah. I know. I do too much. I think we all do too much reading about it. But I think, I'm quite an optimistic person, and I think probably will be on stage in July.
Fantastic. Well, Greg, thanks for joining us. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Oh, thank you to talk to you.
And it's great to hear you so excited about the new album coming out. And it's a brilliant way to be, because it's hard when you've worked on something so much to still be this excited at this stage. So often you've kind of like you've heard enough, but it's great that you're buzzing. It's really clear that you're very excited about the new album and getting back on stage as soon as possible. So wish you all the best with that. Good luck and thank you.
Cheers. Take care.